Hari Om. Hari Om, Hari Om, Hari Om. God is great. So beautiful to be here. Welcome, welcome, welcome. And so we have a lot going on this month. So we have our weekly Satsang, our Wednesday evening meditation group, our Kundalini group. And then there's all kinds of student-led groups within the Sangha. And the way you get in contact with those is through joining the Fully Human, Fully Divine Sangha Facebook page. And so I know there's a lot of folks that listen at a later date and listen on YouTube, and there's just so much happening here. There's all kinds of support, and I hope you can be a part of it. I hope you can be a part of it. The next thing I'm going to ask for your help is because as we continue to support the growth of the Sangha and the growth of these teachings that's being shared throughout the world, just be helpful if everyone could support me in the social media work, which is liking, subscribing, adding a little comment here and there. And I'm going to invite you to say amen, say praise the Lord, say God is great. If you're part of the Rasta tradition, yes, I. Now you can only do the yes, I if you're part of the Rasta tradition. So I don't want anyone doesn't understand yes, I to be throwing that down. You got to be in the groove for that. So yeah, it'd just be helpful because sometimes YouTube and Facebook and Instagram, I've really slacked on, but YouTube, I put a lot of effort into. We should have greater viewership than we do. And so I'm going to ask you to support me in that. Okay. The next thing, we have a retreat coming up. It's not too far away. It's going to be November 7th through the 9th. So I hope you can make it. Let me pull up the calendar because there's going to be some difficulty with the schedule. I'll probably know later as we get closer to that. But the meditation and the Kundalini group, just I think right before that retreat, I'm going to be missing those classes. I think, I always try to pull it off if I can, but I believe I'll be traveling those days. But shouldn't affect satsang. Not that I know of, but anyway, satsang, I think on November 2nd or something will be missed. I'll be celebrating my mom's 80th birthday. And so there's that. Anyways. Okay. In addition, we have a retreat coming up in Washington State, January 15th through the 18th, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, in person. Stay tuned for details for that. And we also have the Shivananda Ashram in the Bahamas, the Spiritual Awakening Symposium. That's at the end of March 2026. So I hope you can be there for all the events. Maybe one of them, maybe all of them. So, when I was with my teacher, I showed up to every single event, every program, and it was a lot. But when you give your life to something big, big things come in return. Big things come in return. So God is great, is what I'll say. Okay. So before we start, I just like to tell a little bit of a tall tale. It's a experience that I had. Let me see if he's here. So I was meeting in the park with Kyle this week, and me and Kyle, sometimes we get together and we talk about different spiritual subjects. Kyle tries to outwit me with his supreme intelligence, and sometimes it works. At other moments, he fails miserably. So this week, I was talking to Kyle and I said, Kyle, you should listen to the Lionel Richie show. Lionel Richie interview on the Joe Rogan podcast. I found it very inspirational. When I was a kid, I listened to Lionel Richie, and I always thought he was kind of a smooth character, smooth operator. But I pressed play on this podcast, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so surprised. It was just such a breath of fresh air to see, this great pop music superstar. And he was really sharing just his path, his journey in the world. And at every step of the way, he had a choice, to choose fear or to have faith. And he had fear, absolutely. He said he was just scared his whole life, but he just kept choosing to have faith. And it was just very inspirational. It's a really beautiful story to hear, especially at this moment in history when everyone's so divided. And so if you get a chance, if you're feeling bored, tune in to Lionel Richie on Joe Rogan. Anyways, so I'm asking Kyle, I was like, hey, do you know who Lionel Richie is? And he said, oh, yeah. And I looked at him and I was like, I don't think he really knows. And I was like, Lionel Richie, right, Kyle? And he said, oh, yeah, like the athlete, right? And at that moment, I got up out of my chair and I had to perform one of my martial arts moves on Kyle. So there's this move in kickboxing called a teep, and it's a kick that you would normally use to kick a door down. So if you just imagine standing before a door and you just lift up your knee and then you go boom and you kick that door open as hard as you could. So I kicked Kyle right in the chest, knocked him over. He split his head open. He bled all over the place. It was a big mess. And some of that story is true. Some of that story is true. I'll let you figure out which parts. But anyways, me and Kyle had a good time at the park. He was busy trying to tell me he knew who Lionel was, and he wasn't. And if you're going to be a part of this song, you have to know who Lionel Richie is. So enough messing around. Enough messing around. Some of the story's true. Some of it. You have to ask Kyle, and he'll tell you what the truth is there. Maybe you won't. You can never know if you can trust a guy like Kyle. Anyways, let's have some more fun here. I'm going to invite you all to shut down your eyes and open your hearts and let go of everything that I just said. And begin to take some deep, full breaths. Softening and opening. And together as we open, I invite you to notice what is present right here. Right here in the center of your chest. And so many of us, as we feel into our chest, we feel either nothingness, or we might feel some warm radiance, some luminosity. We might feel some density, some old emotional pain or trauma. Now, whatever is here, whatever the sensation is, I'm going to invite us just to continue to breathe and to be open with your experience in a non-judgmental way. And so again, we're feeling into the chest. We're breathing, we're feeling, we're softening. And we are acknowledging we are spiritual beings. And our true nature is to be open. To be open. And when we are open, openness is an attitude where we are not judging our experience, but rather we are fully allowing our experience. As we breathe in and breathe out. And I invite you to notice the fundamental nature of openness. What is it like to be open? What is it like to be non-judgmental? What is it like directly to allow everything that's here to be here, whether it feels good, whether it feels unpleasant? Can we be radically inclusive? Of both our humanity as well as our divinity. And so as you notice, as we sit here with openness, you'll notice the heart beginning to reveal itself. And if you're one of those individuals who had numbness in the heart or deadness or heaviness, part of being open and just giving heaviness space is you might notice that heaviness shifts, changes, transmutes, begins to unravel, begins to loosen up, begins to soften. And as it softens, you may notice this essential quietude in the space of the heart. Just quiet yet radiant. Quiet yet fundamentally alive. And so can you feel the fundamental experience of aliveness, the fundamental experience of light? And if anyone's feeling extra dense and says, I have no idea what you're talking about, just put your hand on your heart. Notice the warmth of your hand in contact with the warmth of the heart. And noticing that there's something so good about your heart. Even if you have heartache, your heart is still good. Even if you've made mistakes, your heart is still good. It's still pure. We've all made mistakes, of course. Some people get real judgmental, real tight in their heart. And so we're breathing, we're feeling, and we are opening here. This quiet innocence. And as we open to this quiet innocence, there might be little layers of sadness or tension that are unraveling, that are softening, that are emptying. And I invite you just to gently remind yourself that it's okay to be human. It's okay to have feelings. It's okay to have old pain or old karma. It's hard to be a human being without having some level of heartache. This is such an intense world. And so we are being like Buddhas. We are being like the Christ. As we breathe, as we feel, as we soften and open, this gentle, loving awareness, aware of that which is timeless, that which is eternal, which is innocent and pure, but also aware of that which is hurting now or that which was hurting in the past, that which was ignored and rejected, whether by ourselves or by life or mom or dad, to all of it. We say, I see you. And I welcome you. I see you. All of you. All of me. All of I. However you say that to yourself. And I welcome you. You seeing you. You loving you. You being patient. Some of us are so impatient with our humanity. Being deeply patient. As we breathe in and breathe out. And as we soften throughout the heart, I invite you just to take a look and see, could you soften in your throat? Could you soften in the third eye and the forehead? Could you soften a little more behind the heart? Can you soften under the heart in the solar plexus, the third chakra? Can you soften in the hara, the lower abdomen, and the root? Can you smile just gently, noticing, oh, we've just been sitting here for a couple minutes, and how open do you feel now, just through a couple minutes of practice? And then furthermore, because God is knocking at the door here, can you bring your awareness to your crown chakra? Notice, oh, there is a grace here wanting to descend and enter into this room. And this grace is here to support us on the path of spiritual awakening. This grace is here to speed up our evolutionary nature, speed up our progress here on the path, to supercharge us, We don't have to move at such a slow pace. And so I invite you to notice just what happens when we soften throughout the chakra centers and then open and receive this heavenly grace. All of a sudden, it feels as if your whole spiritual nature is coming online and we're plugged into this divine light, this divine intelligence. And if any of you are sensitive and have there's inner sight, but the inner hearing, you might hear it is this a radiant hum of divinity. And together, as we continue to open as a Sangha, I'm going to invite you just to give God, to give grace, full permission to flow all the way down through each of the 7 chakra centers, blessing each one. And pouring into the earth, blessing the earth, blessing the collective consciousness of humanity. Blessing the very fabric of the human being, and blessing the very fabric of this material plane that we call planet Earth. Inviting this material plane to wake up. To wake up. And so I hope you are smiling at this grace, very receptive, and have a sense of gratitude. Thank you, God. And thank you, Divine Mother. Thank you, great ascended masters, for coming here and supporting us in our work. And so, let us take a moment and and begin to send this light just out to all of our friends and family, our community, our various nations, those we love, those we struggle with. May the whole world be blessed. May the whole world be blessed. And so I welcome you into this room, this space. You can open your eyes if you like, or you can just continue sitting in meditation if that's feels more wonderful to you. And again, I just want to smile here because I kind of started off tonight's satsang a little bit wild, and sometimes I tell silly stories and this and that. But to me, it's such a beautiful thing that I can be this most unperfect human being. I can have trouble with my speech and have dyslexia and tell tall tales and have a little fun and mess around a little bit. And yet, because my intention is pure. And I'm not saying that to give myself any credit. I just know that this intention I have to connect to God, to connect to the truth, is pure. And God shows up here, like, because your intention is pure as well. God shows up here and blesses us with all this light, this luminosity, this extra support on the path. And I hope everyone here gets this, that we don't have to walk this path alone. We can walk hand in hand with the grace of God. Now, there's things we can do to support the grace of God. And one of the easiest things, or the quickest things, I don't know if this is easiest. I think it's really hard for a lot of people to drop out of the mind, to drop out of the mind and come into the heart. And so many of us have so many stories about our heart and how our heart has been treated. Kyle showed up tonight and, I gave him a boom, a big teep right to his chest and knocked him out of his chair. And he showed up. He showed up because he wants to know God. He wants to live in communion with God. And he's not going to say, Craig hurt my feelings when he kicked me in the chest. He said, I better stop this. I'm going to get myself in trouble. He shows up because he wants to connect in love. In love. In the sense of unity. And on the spiritual path, we always have an incredible amount of options in the modern age. We could go here, we could go there, or we could always just get lost on the internet and this and that. But we make this very conscious choice to come together and to open. And as we do so, it does something for the planet. It does something for humanity. And of course, we're not the only group doing this, but there's groups all over the world who are praying for peace, who are working for peace, who are choosing to be unified instead of being divided. And if we're going to support our world, the quickest way is to allow God to work through us. Throughout history, human minds have tried to fix humanity's problems, and we've had some slow, gradual progress, but mostly we're still killing each other and still spending all of our time on our tax dollars and this and that, being at war to some degree, fighting with each other, fighting among parties or tribes or families or borders or whatever it is. Whatever it is. And as spiritual awakening beings, it's a worthy question for us to look at. It's throughout our day. Am I busy judging my neighbor? They may be judging us. It's a common thing with humanity. But can we live in a way where we're not judging, where we're not attacking, where we're not adding to the chaos and the confusion of humanity? can we live in a way where we are both humble and open and receptive? And in order to do this, we cannot be full of our opinions, our ideology, our righteousness, or I'm right and they are wrong, they hurt me and it's not fair. And we can talk about that stuff in therapy. Like there's a time and a place for that. But God can use us in a much more efficient manner when we're open and we are living in the here and now. You know, I met with this guy in the park the other day, and he was living in the future. In the future. And I asked him, what is true now? What's true in the depth of his soul? And he said, I love God. And when he said that, I jumped for joy. I jumped up out of my chair and I kissed him right on the lips. And that's not true either. That's not true either. But I did jump for joy. I jumped for joy. I jumped for joy. So I just have to see if y'all are awake. You know, I have to see, you have to make sure y'all are awake here. I jumped for joy because he stepped away from the future. And he stepped into the directness of the truth in this moment. And so many of us, we live all bound up in the past. And we have this massive projection from the past. Mommy hurt me. My girlfriend hurt me. My wife hurt me. And so I can't trust women. I can't open my heart. I can't love again. Daddy hurt me. Daddy didn't listen to me. And so I shut down and I ignore myself the same way Daddy ignored me. And we play this game of unconscious projection again and again and again. And at some point on the path, we wake up and we realize, oh my God, I'm living a lie. None of these things are happening now, but I am actively choosing to repeat them. Now, I never hear anyone saying this, but I wish I did. I wish I did. I certainly have said this to myself. Oh my God, I'm projecting my past into the present, and it's making it so I cannot see reality clearly. It's making it so my heart cannot be open. And who is doing it to me? I am doing it to me. Be easy for me to blame my ex-wife. It's just too easy. That can roll off the tip of my tongue like that. Just like, boom, it's her fault. It's my mom's fault. It's that girl back in 1986 who broke my heart. It's her fault. And this is how humanity lives. This is how they live. Israel and Palestine, Russia and Ukraine. We just play these games of projection. But how many people are willing to put down the war, put down the fight, and acknowledge I was wrong? If we want to be awake, if we want God flowing through us, we begin with humility. And humility is just a basic realization. I was wrong about probably 95, 97% of everything I've ever thought is not true, is false. I was wrong. I was wrong. I can remember I had this very funny experience So once upon a time, my brother, he's a big farmer. He's the kind of farmer that it's only legal in a few states, a few states. So he's that kind of farmer. And I had some judgment about it. And I had judgment about it because he'd gotten himself in some real shady situations in the past, some life or death situations. And so in the past, I had some real judgment about it. And I can remember I was at one of his houses. He used to have like a grow house, once upon a time. And we were up in the attic. And I saw my brother just playing around with his plants. I call it playing around. He was tending to them. And I noticed this interaction between the plants and him. And when I saw that there was this dance of communication going back and forth between these two. I saw that the plants were responding to his presence and that he had this gift with these plants. And all of a sudden, all my judgments, all my thoughts about this being wrong or against the law or shady or sketchy or whatever it was, all of a sudden, these thoughts just absolutely fell away. And I saw my brother in this dance of divinity. And if we fast forward, a couple decades, and now I go visit him and he has like a plantation size operation. And I go there and I walk into his greenhouses. I see these plants have a consciousness to them, quite an extraordinary consciousness. And I realized, oh, this is a whole world here, a whole world. And it's so beautiful to be able to see this world, to interact with this world, to commune with this world. And to be able to do this requires that Mr. Holliday, this Mr. Holliday, lets go of all of his judgment of the past. What's right, what's wrong, what the laws are, and all that kind of stuff, and who's shady, who's not. Like to let it all fall away and just to see, oh my gosh, there is something almost otherworldly about this plant and something quite beautiful and innocent about my brother's relationship with it. And we've all had experiences like this. But in order for us to have this experience, again, an experience of truth where you're shown the reality of something. One of the things that happens when I go rock climbing is for everyone that I climb with, it's about this one climb and they want to get up it a certain way and, can they get up it without falling and this and that and the grade of the route. And for me, I'm just always just staring at the rock. I stare at the rock and I feel its consciousness. Got a different rock here. This is a bigger one. I feel its consciousness, the power of it, the radiance of it, the luminosity of it, the depth of it, the texture of it, the sound of it. And I let it touch me deeply. And so like today, it's harvest time in Colorado. You better hurry up and harvest all your veggies and your plants and everything because winter's coming here. Winter's coming. And so I've been out in the garden all day and been playing the game of harvesting. And again, to be with each plant. Sometimes it's to be with each leaf, each blade of grass, each flower. It's a funny thing. We had a columbine flower bloom all of a sudden. Here we had like a torrential storm yesterday. I'm sure up on the big mountains they got snow up there, but we got so much rain. We've had like the 30-year drought this summer, and then all of a sudden we were getting flooding, because there was some kind of hurricane that hit Cabo and came up all the way to Colorado. I don't really want to call it a hurricane because I've been in hurricanes before, and Colorado is pretty far away from any hurricane place. But anyways, just to see, to experience whatever it is. Just sometimes I'll be in the hot springs and just be playing around in the magic of water. And as human beings, we have these egos, and an ego's job is to figure out what things are very quickly, ascertain if it's dangerous or if it's safe, and then as quickly as we can just put the information into an autopilot mode. But I don't know if any of you remember, probably none of us remember, but the first time you saw the ocean, first time you put your foot in the ocean, first time you were knocked down by a wave. And it's like, oh, this is the ocean. First time you got that big drink of salt water in your mouth, and you're like, oh, it's like, this is a different flavor. This is a different flavor than my drinking water. This is something different. But when your heart is open, when your experience is open, there's a full body recognition as we come into contact with the beauty and the divinity of life. And on this path of awakening, the path of awakening is different than the path of being an ego. The path of being an ego is everything's just filed away and then just running on autopilot. When we're awake, it's like, oh my God, there's so much experience. There's so much color. There's so much vibrancy. There's so much feeling. There's so much space. There's so much depth. There's so much light. And I am, you are, the awakened one is all of it. Whereas in the ego, it's I am here and the thing is over there. I might have an experience, a judgment, an ongoing commentary about the thing or the experience I'm having. But when you're awake, there's no walls, and you are the thing. You are all things and no thing, and the space in which it all arises. And before anything ever happened, and everything in between. And it's absolutely overwhelming if we are identified in ego. If you're resting in heart, if you're resting in being, it's absolutely thrilling. Absolutely thrilling, whether it feels good or feels bad. It's thrilling. It's thrilling. It's like, wow, there's so much aliveness, so much light. But it requires a certain type of courage, a certain type of strength. A certain willingness is probably a better word. To open and to not shut down. Egos are masters at opening and then shutting down, opening and shutting down all day long. We open a little and then we shut down. Open a little more, shut down a little more. And sometimes people do this when they're out on the town. They use a substance to open themselves up. They go out to the bars. It's a little bit funny to me, but also really sad. Is not so much in the neighborhood I'm in right now, but I live in a college town. I used to live in like right over by the college, and so there's a lot of college kids, and you see Saturday morning, oftentimes, you'd see a girl or two or three, some guys walking home. But with the girls, it's like, they might be walking home carrying their shoes. It's really clear, that they were out on the town the night before. And, they had too much to drink. Maybe they slept over at someone's house that maybe they knew, maybe they didn't. But there's that thing that happens on Friday nights where people go out, they drink, and they become radically open with someone. And then Saturday morning comes along and they quickly shut down and run away because they realize, oh shit, excuse me, this is the wrong person to be with, or I don't really know this person. And the ego plays this game of being open and being closed, back and forth, back and forth. And sometimes I'll have it when I'm working with someone in a session. They'll show up really open and then they'll close right away as soon as I ask them to tell me what they feel in their heart or in their belly or whatever it is, or in the throat. And they'll start defending or distracting. And then later on in the session, they'll open up a little bit and begin to trust, and then they shut down again. And we just play this game back and forth, back and forth. Occasionally I'll get someone, this is rare, but sometimes people will come and they'll sit with me the whole session. They'll try to just stay in some philosophical part of their mind. And I'm like, let's not do that. Can you join me in being open? And if you don't join me in being open, I might give you a big teep right to the chest. I think that's what they do in Zen. There's normally, if you're sleeping and when it's time to meditate, they give you the whack with the stick, boom. And it's like, oh yeah, wake up. Wake up. And I was listening to Jakusho Kwong the other day, and he said in one session, he got smacked 3 times, 3 times. And he said, boom, he said, it hurt so bad. It hurt so bad. But he had a strong unconscious nature at whatever moment in history that was for him. And we all do. We all have a strong unconscious nature. It's really hard to be human. It's hard giving birth in this world. But if we want to make it to the next plane, we have to live in a different way. A way that is beyond division, a way that is beyond judgment, a way where we fully honor ourselves and love ourselves, and know and realize our divinity, and in turn give this gift to the rest of the world. But most people aren't so interested in this. They want to go to that spiritual teacher that tells them how to make $1 million and get the woman of their dreams or the guy of their dreams or whatever it is. that one's not me. That one's not me. So anyways, we're working together with being open. We're working together with being humble before God and letting God's grace move through us, live through us, and create a new order within ourselves. Because right now we all have an egoic order. But we're inviting a new order, a greater order. So anyways, okay. If anyone has a question, please raise your hand, bring it forward. And I'm going to just check the emails here. Now I got this question. This was from Don. He says, "Hi, Craig. At some point, could you tell us a story about your experience in India or when you were in despair and felt pure love? I believe I am this body and my experience. I know better, but still." But still, yeah. Yeah. And this is one of the confusing things on the path is sometimes we wake up out of the body and into this recognition that we're pure love. And then later that evening, our back begins to ache, our mind begins to grumble, and we go back into this egoic identification. So I'm going to start with that second question. Craig, can you tell a time when you were in despair and felt pure love? Yeah, I mean, I can say this. I feel pure love all the time, all the time. Now, there's moments when I'm like, having a really, really hard day. And I've found this over and over again. Like I've had a really tough life with my body. I was one of those individuals who was always, for one reason or another, chronically ill or had chronic pain. I've had all kinds of difficulties with my body, had all kinds of difficulties in relationship. So, I don't need to go through the list of difficulties I've been through, but it hasn't always been easy. It hasn't always been an easy path for me. And I've had a lot of time just because of difficulty with my body, I had a lot of time where I spent laying in bed. And, if you've ever had this experience where your body just doesn't work, doesn't seem to function fully, it's very easy for the mind to go into despair. Very easy. I can tell you when I went through divorce, I had just tremendous despair because we had, big custody battle and this and that, and went on and on for years. And I had tremendous despair. But paradoxically, I had tremendous love, tremendous freedom, and then times of tremendous, inner turmoil. And a lot of times it would all co-arise at the same time. And that was very confusing for me to be feeling bliss and this immense love and this deep connection with God. And then I'd look out at my life, and my life was just a complete and utter train wreck. Just like a complete train wreck. Now I'd always be like, God, like you flood me with so much grace. Can you fix my life, Lord? Can you fix it? And God would always sit there silently. And sometimes I'd even get a little angry at God. And it's a funny thing, to be Craig Holliday, to have all this love and deep connection. And, I'd be like bowing before God and also angry at God and angry at my life, and angry at the people in my life that, that I thought were giving me such a hard time. Giving me such a hard time. And so I've lived this paradox a lot, like for big periods where there'd be tremendous despair and tremendous love and openness. Now, was the love always gushy and radiant and blissful? It was always radiant. But, sometimes when you're having a hard time, just the ego is really good at making a big, loud, hubbub over your life experiences. So my ego would get really loud, but always in the background. there'd be this love. For me, one of the things that's been very confusing is, especially like when I struggle with long COVID, is I'd lay in bed and my body would be burning a fever, and I'd be sick and have this just tremendous fatigue. And I feel so much bliss. I just look at God and say, what in the world is going on here? Like, what in the world is going on here? Sometimes I'd yell at God. I'd be like, man, you're like flooding my body with bliss. And I got a fever. And my thoughts are in despair. And I have all this fatigue and I can't move. Like, what kind of situation is this, God? And so, Don, you might be asking the wrong person, because I've just had an abundance of spiritual experience, and it tends not to matter so much what's going on in my life. For most people, it really does matter. And that's one of the teachings I was trying to bring forth this evening, is one of the great ways we can support God is through having an open heart, a clear mind, an honest mind. And by honest, I mean a lot of us are just busy lying to ourselves, or we're hiding within ourselves. We're distracting, we're numbing, we're deadening, we are distracting ourselves. I'm always amazed at people's ability to lie to themselves. So people are very proficient at it. And by lying to ourselves, I mean, like, I don't really need to meditate. I don't need to do yoga. I don't need to do any healing work. I can ignore the inner child. There's no inner child within me. I'm all good, even if I'm not good. People often, they just lie to themselves on the spiritual path, and they hang out in these real safe zones of spirituality. But at some point, if we want God to be permanent within us, if we want realization to be permanent within us, we have to clear ourselves out. We have to clear ourselves out. We have to be willing to look inside and visit the places that scare us and make a home there. By making a home, I mean, we come into the places that scare us. We investigate them, we communicate with them, we do whatever healing and integration work is necessary. And through integration work, we re-inhabit that aspect of our being. Often, it's a place we gave our power away, a place where we chose to go numb and dead. And so as we do this psychological healing work, in a sense, we're preparing the ground, we're clearing out the chakras, we're letting go of the old karma, the old habits, we're getting our father's belief systems, his way of treating us, out of us, and mothers. Because there's so many of us who had fathers or mothers who, they just didn't honor us. And then we did this thing where we internalized their voice and grew up and just repeated it. Okay, if dad ignored me, I'm going to ignore me. If mom ignored me, I'm going to ignore me. But if we want God to enter us, if we want to live from a place of awake awareness, we cannot be full of the past. And so it's a great question. Like, how am I full of the past? What is it that I'm tripping over? What is it that I've struggled with? What do I need to forgive? And so the second question Don asked is, can you tell us a story about India? I could tell all kinds of stories, but You know how my stories go. They get a little silly sometimes. The thing about India, like the thing that was so remarkable to me about India was when I visited India, there was this recognition that God is here, here in the chaos of creation. The thing about India is it's like on every street, there's a temple, a shrine, a sadhu, sometimes 800 sadhus. These are holy men or nuns. They would paint, a little bindi on the cows, on the cows. And here it is, like barnyard animals, having bindis on them, being decorated, having malas. Guys, so, cows walking around with decorated with flowers. And here in the West, it seems like our world is just such a materialistic world. But in India, it seemed like everywhere I was going, there was incense burning. There was also trash burning. There's the air was just terrible. It was just like the pollution was so horrific. But just with a little touch of Nag Champa, a little touch of Nag Champa in the air. And there's just something about it where it's like, okay, it's so easy to see God when the culture supports it. Since I've been to India, I mean, India has become like a huge tech country, excuse me. And so, I don't know if it's exactly the same as when I was there. I'm sure it's changed and grown and evolved. But at the heart of it, there's something about India where, this is the spiritual heart of planet Earth. And you'll feel it in India. Like sometimes if you're in, one of those beautiful Hawaiian islands like Maui or something, you can feel a little bit of it. I mean, you can a little bit. You can feel it in a huge way on Maui. You can feel it a huge way in Kauai. But India, it's seen, it's acknowledged, it's worshipped. And you can just be hanging out in traffic, and then all of a sudden there'll be some big holy group that's busting out and having a parade, honoring a guru or a deity or a holy day. It's like every week there's some holy parade that's happening. And it's incredible. It's incredible to be in a culture that honors God in so many different ways. Because, they'll honor God in a cow, in Ramana Maharshi. If you go to Ramana Maharshi's ashram, there's the Mahasamadhi of Ramana's cow. The Mahasamadhi is the grave site, the site where the enlightened being, the enlightened cow was was buried. And there's Ramana's Mahasamadhi, and you're on Holy Mount Arunachala. And then if you drive into town a little bit, there's this massive temple that was like, who knows when it was built. It's hundreds, if not thousands of years old. Then across the street from the Ramana Maharshi ashram is the Yogi Ram Surat Kumar ashram. And it's just like, and then, there's countless teachers offering satsang. All in just this. I mean, it was once a little town called Tiruvannamalai. Now it's, I'm sure, bustling metropolis, but it's just amazing to see sadhus everywhere and people who are giving themselves over to God and choosing to live a life of prayer, a life of meditation, a life where they're choosing to inquire into the depth of their soul. Here in the West, we're still not sure, is this a legitimate path or not? In the West, it's like we honor people in business, people in tech, doctors, lawyers, Hollywood celebrities makes no sense to me, but somehow those people are really honored. Athletes, of course. You know, I had some friends over last night, and I was a part of this conversation, and someone brought up reality TV, and then just the people at the party, they were just listing all these different shows that they had watched. My wife was laughing because she had seen some of the shows, and I never heard of any of them. I had nothing at all to contribute. I was just kind of sitting there silently. Like, these were my friends. Like, I have nothing to add to this conversation. I have not seen any of these shows. I grew up without much TV. I grew up with a TV with an antenna on it, and we lived out in the country, so like we just never had any channels. And so I never had cable TV ever in my life. And so I didn't see these shows, nor I can't stand these shows. So it's like I couldn't get into them. But, the girls were really talking. The guys were telling jokes, about the different characters on the shows and this and that. And I had nothing to contribute. But in India, but like here in the United States, here in the Sangha, we might think of ourselves a little bit like weirdos. But when you visit somewhere like India, it's like, oh, it feels like the country is your Sangha. It's like, oh, the spiritual life is radically not only accepted, it's not tolerated, it's actually everywhere. It's visible. It's in the streets. It's in your face. The incense is in your nose. It's just there. It's there. It's there. And again, I don't want to paint India out to be some utopian society. It's not. It's a total mess. It's a total mess. So much poverty, so much heartache there, so much pollution, and very chaotic country. But there's something about it that I resonate with so deeply because like my life has always been pretty messy. I mean, it's really, really it's not such a mess anymore. Earlier in my life, it was always just a big mess. And yet I had this deep love for God. And I feel like India is the same way. It's this big mess, but it knows what the most important thing is. It knows what the most important thing is. And that makes all the difference in the world. Makes all the difference in the world. Okay, so there's one other question someone sent in, and went something like this. Hi, Craig. I had a transcendental experience recently that took me for a surprise. My worldview has shifted drastically. And I would like to know if this is something you might be able to help me with. Yeah, I mean, this is what I do. I sit with people who've had these big shifts. And in a sense, I try to help them to normalize it, to validate it, and of course, to embody this thing. Because it's one thing to have a shift, but it's another thing for the shift to become permanent. To become permanent. And the primary thing is if we want to open to something greater, and we want this greater thing to take root within us, it's kind of like having a garden. The first thing you do with a garden is you plow the field. Like you get out all the old grasses and weeds and this and that, and you make space for the new thing to take root. Gotta make some room for it. But in the modern day, the modern age, most of us, we don't make room for our experience. We're so used to just constantly feeding ourselves more and more information. Like whoever came up with that infinity scroll, whether it's on Facebook or Instagram, I think YouTube, it finally has a stop. Like it's like an into it on YouTube, but on the rest of them, that thing just scrolls just forever. It's just like this constant feeding one more and more information. More and more information. And when our head is so full of information, when our body's so full of information, it's hard to shift into anything. And if we do shift, it's probably just by grace. And then it goes as quickly as it came. If this shift is going to become permanent, again, we have to really look at our life and ask, what is it that I value? What do I value? And this is where humans get themselves in a lot of trouble. It's like they value the truth when they're feeling good. They ignore the truth when they're feeling bad. And that's a recipe for a great disaster on the spiritual path. Because you just be hot, cold, open, close, just throughout your path. But if you value the truth, if you honor the truth, if you bow before the truth, you say yes to it, whether you feel good or whether you feel bad, is irrelevant. I had a friend, like a buddy of mine came over last night. We were talking about this old friend, and I said, hey, I saw this guy. I'm going to call him Legion because he's very similar to Legion in the Bible. I said, yeah, I saw Legion the other day. And my buddy Devin, he said, I think Legion flew too close to the sun. And it's true. Our friend Legion, he took, some of those fun, explosive, mind-altering psychedelics, and he blew his mind apart. And now, I just see Legion walking the streets, and he's got a good smile. He's still got a good smile. He's kind of got that perma grin, but also he has the deer in the headlights look in his eyes, because he did the wrong psychedelic at the wrong moment in history. And I tell people all the time, people say, what do you think of psychedelics? They're always a gamble. So I've got a list of friends, like a list, a good list of old friends who are walking around, in some altered state of paranoia mixed with a little schizophrenia and some psychosis and maybe some spiritual awakening in there. And whether it's way too much ayahuasca or DMT or this or that, or it just didn't work out the way they thought it would. And it's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking. But some of us, we get a little too excited with the latest, greatest, psychedelic thing or whatever. We say, oh, the Harvard study said this, or John Hopkins study said that, and these people did mushrooms once and they quit smoking forever and all their depression fell away, and they never had a violent thought again. And I'm always like, oh yeah, sure, sure. here in this world. God may awaken us through grace. God may awaken us through a psychedelic. But we are asked to embody the truth in our thoughts, our words, our behaviors, our psychological nature, our body, our humanity. We are asked to embody it. And in order to embody it, we have to be empty. In order to be empty, we better know about forgiveness. We better know about love. We better have released our righteousness. We have to know about the innocence of our inner child. For the innocence of the inner child is the innocence of awareness. Because some people have a really dry, almost philosophical sense of awareness. And it starts to really dry out and it never becomes embodied because they haven't done the work. They don't actually love themselves. They're busy trying to hate themselves on the path of spiritual awakening. It's a very common thing. I mean, I'm bursting out laughing because I've seen it so often is people have showed up trying to hate themselves into a space of spiritual freedom. It's like, that's not going to work, guys. It's not going to work to hate yourself. Now, I saw is it White Goodman the other day? Is that his name? I don't know if any of you know him, but he works at Global Gym International. And he showed a picture of himself 3 years and maybe it was 4 years and 400 pounds ago. 4 years and 400 pounds ago. He just had to hate himself enough to lose all that weight. And now that was his path. But in this world, the world of spiritual awakening, we love ourselves to death. We love ourselves to death. And if you didn't get my reference there, that's from Dodgeball with Ben Stiller. Ben Stiller, and who's the tall guy? I'm not going to get it right now. But anyways, this basic question, do you love you? Have you forgiven you? Are you kind to you? And of course, we'll ask these same questions in relationship to the world. Okay, let's hear from Molly and then we'll call it a night. Hi, Molly.
Okay, so it's a little miracle, because I had a really, really hard time. I think that's when I first found Craig, like half a year ago. I don't think maybe some of you remember. Uh, I was just like miserable, absolutely terrible, and I was homeless, and I need to find an apartment, and so on and so forth. And when I first got the apartment, that was 6 months ago, and I got a plant, and a leaf fell off the plant, which is this leaf.
Yes.
And I thought, okay, it's probably gonna die because it doesn't have any root or nodules or anything like that. So I kept it in a little vase, and I, I just think, well, as long as you are alive, I'm gonna keep replacing your water. So I
Yes.
just did that. I didn't expect it to leave. Uh, it just kept staying alive, and it's like 6 months later, it's still alive,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it's easy. And then a few 2 a week ago, I just checked. I was cleaning, and look, the tiny little
Just
roots
like tiny, huh? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's like
Yeah.
two tiny roots
Yeah.
coming.
Yeah.
It's not supposed to grow root out of the stem, it's just like a regular
No,
stem.
it's amazing. Huh? It's the beauty of life. Yeah, the intelligence of life, the miracle of life.
Now alive, like it grows slowly. It takes
Yeah.
like 6 months for it
I
to
mean
grow.
that's amazing. That's absolutely amazing. Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you, Molly, for sharing that with us.
And it's like really symbolic because I feel like I'm the same way. I was just like kind of like a leaf off a plant, feeling like an
Yeah.
exile,
Yeah.
miserable. And now I feel like alive, more alive.
Yeah. And that's one of the things that Molly and I spoke about. And especially in our other classes, we spoke about Molly growing some roots. And so it's being reflected in this plant. Yeah. Yeah. So beautiful for you to share with us the miracle life, the miracle life. What a blessing. What a blessing. Okay. Well, let's do this, everyone. Let's shut down our eyes. And again, I want us just to check in with the energy of grace. And it's like, look here. The grace of God is with us. This light is shining down upon us, filling our hearts with great love. And so, what a blessing it's been to come together in satsang. Let us shine this love out to our most beautiful planet. Let us call forth the ending of wars and violence here on planet Earth. Let us invoke a new age, an age of love, an age of unity, an age of great peace and harmony throughout planet Earth. Let each of us rise up in strength and tell God, I want to be your conduit for this immense grace. I want to be your conduit for this love. I want to transmit the truth here on planet Earth. And so I invite you to go forward with your hearts open, allowing your life to be a blessing to all you encounter. And so I'm going to invite us to continue to be open and allow the stream of grace to flow down through us, to flow out into this most beautiful world. And so, what a blessing to be with each of you. So much love. Good night, everyone. See you soon.